Right from the start, I want to explain the title of this video, that psychs are pushing de facto forcing gun control. Um, I know one guy that's a psychiatrist or psychologist, actually. He's into natural stuff. Now, actually, I'm a big proponent of psychology in a natural way, wherein you're using healing frequencies or what you would call positive psychology, or herbs, or the high ketonic diet, which helps the mind. Um, it fights dementia, like older people have problems with that type of stuff. Nutrition such as lecithin, like that can improve the psyche. Natural sunlight can too, and of course there's the healing meditation waves that you can put through the brain artificially through electronics. I'm actually a major proponent of that type of stuff. I'm vehemently against drugging psychs, the psychs that are out there. Now, this guy had told me something, and it was interesting because he said a cop accused him of being a liberal politically. Now, liberal, means communist in a way today it's used. Liberal back in 1700s meant what the founding fathers said, but today they took the word and meant something else, right? Well, a cop accused him of being a liberal, and he says, "No, I'm not." And the reason a cop accused him of being a liberal was because probably about 99% of the sites out there they lean heavily to the left politically, which means they are vehemently for disarming the population and for gun control. And what gets me is even the major, I think Gun Owners of America recognizes this somewhat, but they don't really go right to it, because the biggest enemy out there is the psychs, and they're being used as a tool of the elite to disarm people. Now, I'm showing a silhouette of a soldier with an AR, I guess it's an M16, not an AR-15, dealing with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or battle fatigue, or shell shock, as it used to be called. Today, they are deliberately asking anybody that gets out of a combat zone, questions like, do you feel this way? Do you feel that way? Do you feel like you have dreams about what happened? Of course you are, right? Then they put you on meds and they diagnose you with PTSD or anxiety or depression. Now today, even veterans, you better watch out. If you go to the VA, they'll ask you, have you ever been depressed in the last year? Have you ever had a traumatic incident, whether a family member died or something happened in the last year, or you were in an auto accident or whatever? And they can use that as a reason to say you got a psychiatric condition, and thus you will be deemed not worthy or something where you can't have a gun. And they did this to 275,000 veterans already, just from PTSD only, which it's ludicrous because, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, none of this stuff was around where they were disarming people over this bullshit. As a matter of fact, psychs weren't even around the way they are today. It's a big crock of crap. And I want to get you into something else too. See, in the Soviet Union, the main way to control people was with re-education camps, but really it was psychology or psychiatry. The main drug they used was Haldol. Haldol is a drug that takes away all your strong beliefs about anything. Whether, you could be religious, or maybe you could be interested in your family, or maybe you got strong beliefs about, engineering or artwork. I don't know, it could be anything. It just dulls the senses to the max, and you don't give a damn about anything. That's one of the main drugs they used. Actually, they used that drug on the black protesters in the civil rights movement. They used to arrest them when they're protesting and drug them up with that crap, Haldol, in the United States, which is a drug that was developed, I think, in the early 1950s, used extensively in the Soviet Union. It's used in the United States, too, though, to this day, all over the place. Psychiatry kills. Yeah, it actually doesn't just kill the body, but it kills the mind. It slows down people's motivation, drive, ambition, creativity, strive to succeed, and basically it affects the GDP in a poor way, in a lot of ways people don't expect, because they do not realize, when people are medicated, especially like students in school, because maybe they got this thing called attention deficit disorder, that they are causing them to not excel at something maybe they would do good in. Because how many people out there do you know that are famous that dropped out of college or never went to school and made it big in life, but they were kind of like problems in school? A lot of people, actually. Actually, I think the guy that started Motorola was one of them. Which is something you probably don't even expect to hear that. I think the guy that was Learjet, he worked with the Motorola guy too, initially with the radios from Motorola. He was another guy that was like, screwed his school stuff. Well, Bill Gates, I don't like Bill Gates, but look, hey, he said screw college, right? Supposed to medicated this guy. He would have never freaking got up to ground zero. There goes your GDP. But Psychs mainly are freaking communist. Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychiatry, was a known, sexual deviant that used cocaine on himself and on his patients unexpectedly and raped women, young females and stuff. He brags about it. He used to give it to his friends, and he used to brag about how his sexual conquest of, he, the big strong man, would cocaine in his veins, and you are the little darling that's frail and doesn't eat enough, and you're too skinny, and I'm going to overpower you and have sex with you, right? That was Sigmund Freud. He's the father of modern psychiatry. Now, it's amazing how people buy into this shit. Now, I know some people buy into it because they love the attention of having a condition. Oh, what was me? Oh, I got this. I got bipolar disorder. I got this. I got that. Well, the thing is, I'm going to make a point on this video, though, is that Psychs, besides being generally, and I got to go by what that cop told that guy, you're a liberal. He accused him, and he goes, no, I'm not, because he actually was a conservative guy. He's like a libertarian, not a liberal. But the cop realizes, he knew that most Psychs are freaking way left-leaning, way left-leaning. They have a motivation to cause people to, not just financially, to drug people for profit, get more people on their client list, and not just to enrich themselves, but also to push their gun control agenda, which they're doing it to the ex-military, through the veterans, what do you call that thing, the VA, Veterans Administration, and they're also doing it through the active duty people, because they all get these interviews after they get out, When you look back at psychiatry, it's been an institution of torture. And, like this woman here was put in these restraints to, because supposedly, this is back in the old days, right? But it was much more obvious how they were harming people way back when, because they would physically harm them, where you'd see blood, or they'd harvest organs out of people, or they'd strap them down and all this kind of shit. Now they use drugs. And they say the drugs are necessary because the person has a condition, but what it really happens is they cause a dependency on these drugs, and then when the person gets off the drugs, they're doing these irrational behaviors, and irrational behaviors are manifesting themselves. And what happens then, that proves that you need this drug. That's because you just made the person a drug addict. But they'll tell you you will have a dependency on it because you have a condition. Well, it's exactly the same as saying you have a dependency on cocaine because you have a condition. Cocaine was the main drug, one of the main drugs of Sigmund Freud. Now, everybody knows cocaine is a hard drug that's harmful, but most people don't know that the psych drugs actually cause not only lack of motivation, lack of creativity, lack of willpower, which is the same as motivation to strive and get over the hurdles and produce more, which slows down the productivity in society, but it also causes extreme dependence upon these drugs, and it's very difficult for it to get off these drugs. Now, could you imagine back in the 1800s, in the Wild West, if you want to say, or even during the colonial times, or whenever, something had to get done. Western movement, or the Himalayas had to be conquered by mountain climbers, or Mount Everest had to be uh, uh, conquered by Sir Edmund Hillary or whatever. Um, could you imagine if a psych was right there and saying, "Well, you're climbing up this mountain. Do you feel depressed that you didn't make as much time that you thought you would have so far?" And the guy would say, "Yes, I wish I was 10 miles ahead of where I was now." Well, here's some drugs that'll help you with your depression. He would have never made it to the top of the mountain. Just like, nothing would ever got done with the Coast to Coast Railroad. Could you imagine Psychs being on scene when they were doing the Coast to Coast Railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad, when they first joined East with the West with a railroad, and the Psychs were out there saying, "Hey, you workers, you got to have. How do you feel? Do you feel like you're depressed or anxious, or you didn't lay enough track today? Are you depressed that didn't happen, that you didn't meet your goals? Oh yes, here's some drugs." Nothing would have got done. Now people got to figure out who the hell is really causing a lot of damage in the society, and what is really affecting our GDP, and what is helping their GDP is these communist psychs. And they're actually screwing everybody else up, and they're lining their pockets. But at the same time, since 99% of them, or maybe let's say at least 90%, maybe up to 99% of the psychs out there are extremely left-leaning, they also are very much for gun control. So anytime they label a person as having anxiety issues, depression, or anything like that, they automatically stripped away that person's gun rights. They do this with people on Social Security too, left and right. Oh, they do this for various reasons. Any woman that goes in there and says, "Oh yeah, I feel depressed because I'm having a baby," or whatever, and she admits to that, they can just say, "Oh, you got depression," and you're done. The woman no longer has the ability to defend herself with a gun because they stripped away that right. Now, could you imagine if they're back around during the times when kids were playing cowboys and Indians? Hey, you can't do that. That's showing violent, aggressive behavior, and you need meds and blah, blah, blah. The reality of the situation is most of those meds either dull the senses, destroy creativity, destroy productivity, or they even create suicidal thoughts, and they disrupt sleep patterns and affect short-term memory. Because, actually, you can be, I can tell you one thing. I think one drug out there that probably is pretty harmless unless you you do it too much is marijuana. I don't smoke the stuff at all, right? But marijuana, if you do it a little bit, it don't hurt you, right? But it's an example. But if you do a lot of it, you notice that people get kind of lethargic if people smoke a lot of weed every day. Well, psych drugs are far more harmful than marijuana. Yet, a little bit of marijuana is flat out illegal in most states, unless it's medical marijuana, right? Isn't that a fact? So what the hell's going on? I think the government really knows what's going on. And I'm going to tell you one thing. The government, on all levels, whether it's the federal, state, or county, knows that psychiatry in its drugging is control. And one thing I'm also thinking is this. I noticed today on YouTube or Google, you can't say one word against the Muslim faith or ISIS or whatever, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? Because, those people ain't exactly too tolerant, right? They're not tolerant and all that kind of crap at all, if anything, right? I think what's going on is they're trying to use them to create hate and dissent in this country for more control and, calamity and more disorder. But the way they think they're going to control radical Islam is through drugging by psychiatrists. If somebody gets too out of line where they're not useful to the agenda of causing disruption in society for bringing about change as the elite want, they will drug the crap out of the more radical Muslims that aren't useful if they can, that's what I think they plan to do. Now, I'm going to tell you one of the best solutions that could be freaking fixed up in this country. Not that not that I trust Trump, not that I believe Trump, not that I think Trump is the greatest thing on this freaking earth that ever came into being, like a lot of people do that supported him. But I do know Hillary Clinton is the biggest piece of scum on the face of the planet, hands down. And I tell you, all these little blue counties in this country that voted for her, not so much that you voted, you were a Trumpster, because I'm not really a Trumpster, but I sure as hell hated the Hillebeast. If Putin blows these counties up, we're going to be okay. Go for it, Vlad. I just want to put that at the end of the freaking video here, because I'm telling you right now, that's probably what it's going to take. Blow up the blue counties, man. But, hey, man, this is war. This is war. And I'll take any enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's the way I look at it. Vlad, I really kind of know to deal with you, but you know what? You ain't as bad as some of the communists. You ain't as bad as Hillary. And, I'm putting this as a side note because basically psychiatry and psychiatrists are, well, they use the word liberal. I use the word what it really is. They're communists. They're blatant control freak communists. And they want to control you with drugs as they controlled this woman in the past. This is how drugs control people. You make you into drug addicts. And when they do this, they disarm people. They disarmed 200. I got this off of one video that was about the Gunners of America, but they're not telling you the whole deal. They disarmed 275,000 active duty before they got out because they were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder or battle fatigue or shell shock, as they used to call it. They were also doing this in the Veterans Administration, trying to, with these questionnaires. So, you'd be a fool to say, if you were in a car accident or some shit that you experienced a stressful situation within the last year, because they'll automatically put you on the list that you got some kind of problem, and then they'll use that as an excuse to where you can't buy a gun or own a gun or all this other kind of shit. Psychs are the communist forefront of disarming America, but they're mainly concentrating on the vets and the ex-military. I mean, the active duty military and the and the veterans, the ex-military, former military. Psychs are vicious, freaking control freaks, drug dealers, and they're hideous human beings. Most of these people, they just got the biggest freaking ego in the world. And they'll tell you at hours how freaking, anybody can walk into a psychiatrist today and they'll be diagnosed with something pretty easily. Most of them. Most people by far. Because it's in their financial interest to do so by the psychiatric profession. Because drugs they all get kickback on the drug money. But the number two thing is, since all of them, for virtually most of them, are extreme left-leaning communist pigs, that also disarms that person when they are labeled to have anxiety, depression, I don't know, bipolar disorder, whatever the hell it is, some kind of bullshit, you know what I mean? And that just fits their political agenda. Now, I would like to see, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I would like to see ISIS realize, and Mohammed, people that realize that they're going to use the psychiatric profession against anybody of the Islamic faith or the Muslim faith that gets out of line with the elitist wishes. So, psychs are your big enemy too, because if you want to knock out somebody's belief in Muhammad or Sharia law, give them Haldol. That'll do it. That'll work. It worked in the Soviet Union on the Soviet dissidents. It worked on the black protesters in the 60s during the time of civil rights. And it'll work on people that are of the Muslim faith that the elite deem they are too hot to control. So, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I'll extend a little bit of friendship out to some of the people out there of Islam land too. Even though the American military is generally fighting them, but we're both fighting control freaks and communists. And there's no big bastion of communism in the United States that's as well funded as the psychiatric profession. It is the whole goal of it is to control the behavior of society. That's another reason you have the Tavistock Institute in the UK. It's about mind control of the population at large. And they pay people on the internet to make comments and troll and do all this other shit. I'm telling you right now, they got loads of them out there. But, I'm doing my bit to knock them out the other way. But I wanted to make this point that psychiatrists, by and large, it's got to be at least 90% are extremely left-leaning. They're the Hillary Clinton supporters, not just like Bernie Sanders, but I mean they're the blatant control freaks. They know what's best for everybody, and they just want to own everybody's ass like the masters they think they are in their mind, and they do it through drugs. But the other way to own people is to disarm them, and the way to disarm them is to diagnose them with anxiety, post-stress, post-PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, I don't know, sleep disorder, I don't know, whatever you got, bipolar, anything like that. And then that will stop any veteran or somebody who's even active duty from purchasing their own firearm. They'd be done. Then they would be controlled puppet of the elite. You're only allowed to use that gun when we're told to use it. You can't own it for your own personal use, right? They do that in the military. They're doing this left and right with veterans. And by and large, like I said, the psychiatric profession are blatantly communist. If you looked at, politically, they were some of the biggest supporters of Hillary Clinton. Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer. That kind of shit. That's them. That's the Psychs all the way. That's them all the way. Not to say that, I'm not so stupid to believe Trump's sales pitch about make America great and we're going to drain the swamp. But, I definitely was not taking Hildebeest over him. No way in hell. I realized that Trump might be a safety valve to stop a freaking revolution in this country, for crying out loud. Maybe that's what he could be. I don't know. But, I'm not somebody that just, I'm not like a guy that supports this Trump guy all the way, 100%. But I do know I'm vehemently against communist pigs like Hillary Clinton and the Psychs that supported her. And Obama. Take Obama over Hillary. But, what are they really looking to do? Disarm America to control. Why did they get people on these psych drugs? To control them. They're drug addicts. And at the same time, when they're doing this, they're killing creativity, they're killing productivity, they're killing the strive to succeed, and in effect, they're killing the GDP of this country with psych drugs. I mean, it's one thing, and I could talk about genetically modified foods and poisonous processed foods and everything else that slows down the body and the mind. But just beware. There's another angle out there. As far as psychs go, they ought to be like the little fella on the left here, because I'm telling you right now, that's what you need to do with them. You need to control them. The prosecutors in this country, they need to go after the psychiatric profession the way to go after drug dealers. Flat out, prosecute the living crap out of them. Go after the psych corporations with the RICO laws. Bleed them dry. Mass arrest of psychiatrists. Put them in there with the hardest other freaking gang criminals so they can learn not to be bad psychs anymore and have a nice time, buddy, I could give a shit. That's what the prosecutors need to do in this country. They need to viciously, vehemently, with a rabid, bare fangs, gnashing teeth approach, go after these psychs and slam every single one of them, just because they are rotten drug dealers, and nail every single one of them, because they are taking away our freedoms in this country. They're taking away our freedoms, like, okay, you could say gun rights is one, but also the right to free thought, because what they're doing is they're dulling your minds. They're destroying the economic livelihood of people by destroying their productivity, their ambitions, and their creativity. And they're enriching themselves by causing these people to have dependencies on the drugs they administer over phony little bullshit that, has been around since day one. I mean, people have been depressed, anxious, lost sleep, been stressed out over a number of things, all in the past. It happened out west when people were going to wagon trains going to California through the Oregon Trail. It happened when, they landed on the Mayflower in this country in pre-colonial times. It happened in Jamestown, Virginia. It happens in the coal mines of West Virginia. Yeah, people get stressed when they're in a coal mine and they're digging and it's dark and the air isn't too good. And people get stressed at all different times. It doesn't mean you need drugs, you damn idiots. You know what's going on there. They're not stupid. They are drug dealers. And the prosecutors in this country need to go after these psychs for the drug dealers that they are, and also the communist control freak pigs that they are. Maybe this message is too strong for YouTube, but YouTube's got an agenda right now to make things friendly for the elitist advertisers, which are the control freaks in the psych profession, and people that are controlling the America's, direction. Which, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if YouTube's going to say this Flatty is advertiser friendly because it's politically incorrect. I don't think it's, I know it's politically incorrect by the elite, but I don't think they're getting so subjective with this stuff. But I'm going to tell you one thing as a final thought here. Do not buy anything from any of these large corporations. Period. None of them. None of them. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, tell him to go to hell. All these large corporations, avoid them as much as possible, because only you, the consumer, can shut off these communist bastards right from the source, and that is because you are their main customers. That's going to get them more than anything. And do support any little tiny, not saying my channel, but any little channel on YouTube, because I can tell you right now, I know what's going on, man, because even Eric the car guy was complaining about this shit, about the new Google algorithms and shit. I was like, well, anybody independent they don't like, man. That's what's going on. Controlled thought. So, bringing you out another message here. Most psychs, by far at least 90%, maybe as much as 99%, are blatant, extreme left-leaning, socialist, communist, liberal types, and they're all for gun control. And that is another reason they will label people with stuff to disarm people, including vets, military, whatever the hell they are, and even mothers who might need a weapon to defend themselves against, potential rapists or whatever, because maybe they're depressed when they're having a baby or something. They're doing it not just to profit, to get themselves more money for the drugs they sell, but also to push their gun control agenda, because most psychs are for gun control. Most psychs are. They're communists to the max. And it's amazing. Well, the NRA doesn't see 99% of anything that goes out there, but even Gun Owners of America doesn't see this. I'm going right to the meat of the problem, man. And Sigmund Freud, being that he is the father of modern psychiatry, hey, he's Mr. Cocaine Pusher, freaking rapist, cocaine, throw it on a young female and I'll rape her because she's on cocaine and I'm on cocaine. He's the guy that's the father of modern psychiatry. That tells you what they're about. That tells you right there. Anybody that uses drugs in psychiatry, which that's by definition they do, is a drug dealer. And they ought to be prosecuted just like they are drug dealers. Right to the max. Right to the hilt. And throw them in jail. Throw away the key.